too much? Were you told you're detoxing too much? Do you hear out there, hey, you're detoxing, slow down the detox. Maybe you need to slow it down. We're going to talk all about detoxing for a little bit, so I'm excited about this. You don't want to miss this episode. Plus, Medical Meaning Podcast at Apple Podcast. I released a micro-dosing episode that will blow your mind. Just want to give you that quick rundown on that, so don't miss it. Medical Meaning Podcast at Apple Podcast. Micro-dosing. Hey man, microdosing. So I just want to make sure you check it out. It's a really good episode. It's really informative, powerful, packed with information. But we're talking about detoxing. I'm excited about this. Where does this detoxing thing come from? Where does the term come from? What is it about? So I want to cover a couple of things. In the conventional world, detox meant people going into a clinic and going through pharmaceutical withdrawal. Just for the record, okay? It wasn't about anything else besides going into a clinic and coming off of morphine. That's the term detox in the conventional mindset. Very important, really important topic here. A lot of people are like, I'm detoxing too much, or I'm not detoxing enough, or what's going on, or my adrenals are hurt because I'm detoxing. Very important information we're covering. But in the conventional world, detox was going into a clinic because you're on too much pharmaceutical and you're coming off of it, or coming off of morphine, or coming off of oxys, or coming off of something else, or even like benzodiazepine or something, right? Coming off of heavy drugs. And originally going back, it was morphine. That's what it was about. It's just all about morphine, just letting you know. And so that's where detox comes from on a conventional mindset. On an alternative mindset, get ready for this, it's the old hygienic movement term, detoxing. Now I want to cover this thoroughly, this is important. How did it come about? Well, the word detox came about because people who lived in the cities were living in the toxic smog of the factories, and all of the toxic surroundings and the car exhaust. So what would happen is people would be also eating restaurant food too at the same time, and early canned and packaged food. Early stuff, early 1900s, late 1800s. Old canneries canning all the food. Packaged food back then, yeah. And so it was all about like lead cans and all that other stuff. So it was about toxic lifestyles. So it was about getting out of the city, stopping partying, and getting off of recreational drugs. Very important to know. So in the alternative mindset, detox was all about getting away from the fast-paced lifestyle of the day of the 1890s and the early 1900s. It was all about the early drug movement. It was all about the canned food, and it was all about the partying and all about the smog and the city living. And so detoxing would be get you out of that environment in the early 1900s, get you into a country manor somewhere, right? In the hills or somewhere, fresh air, birds chirping, kind of like sanitarium, kind of like something that's a paradise, nature, getting away from the toxic lifestyle of the world, the fast-paced world, okay? That was also part of the alternative mindset of detoxing. And that even was partly with the conventional mindset too, going back that far too a little bit. But conventional mindset mainly focused on like getting off of morphine. That was the detox. All right, so let's cut into this a little bit. Then the whole foods, movement. Just eating like fruits and vegetables, herbs, okay? And getting away from meat. And this isn't a anti-meat talk or animal protein talk or anything. That's not what this is at all. But it was the early days, the early 1900s. It was about getting away from restaurant food and beef and getting out of the cities and getting into a cleaner environment and getting off of all that heavy animal meat, okay? So that was the early alternative movement. And instead, it was about eating nuts and seeds and walnuts and almonds and cashews or whatever, different seeds, and all about that, and sprouted grains. And it was all about getting out of the cycle everybody was in the early 1900s, where they were eating meat and restaurant food, and were using high salt, and we're in the smog and pollution and stress. And it was about getting somebody out. The hygienic movement was birthing, and it was about getting that person out of that so they can actually be free. And they would get them off meat, and they would put them on nuts and seeds instead of meat. And this would be all part of their detox. See? So the hygienic movement was birthed out of this mindset. And the hygienic movement was all about you're toxic, so now you need to detox. See where I'm going? This is so important, you guys. I want you to watch this from the beginning a couple of times if you can. This is going to answer a billion questions, I think. But the point is so alternative medicine was about animal protein was making you sick. Do you guys get my gist here? I'm not saying animal protein makes you sick. When have I ever said that? That animal protein, medical medium's never been about one or the other. Hasn't attacked animal meat. The point is that the early hygienic movement was you're sick. Hear me now. Don't miss this point. You're sick because you're eating animal meat. And you have to get away from that and go plant-based, plant foods. And that's the hygienic movement. You are toxic. And then as the hygienic movement grew a little bit more, desserts and sweets and treats were all part of it too. So what happens is if you lived a conventional lifestyle in the 1930s, the 1940s, and you weren't feeling well, they would say you need to take away all the sweets, all of the delicacies, all of the rich food, all of the meats and burgers. They all had to go. The hygienic movement. But there's something really important to understand about this, which will blow your mind. The alternative hygienic movement did not know why you were sick. They didn't know why someone had tremors. They didn't know why someone couldn't walk because they had like wobblers. They didn't know why someone was fatigued, deathly fatigued and bedridden. They didn't know why people had all kinds of different symptoms, from severe brain fog to tics and spasms to aches and pains to tingles and numbness to not being able to sleep to everything from anxiety to depression to trigeminal neuralgia to pain in their jaw, their neck, their head, everything. They did not know why anyone had any of this. This is so important. The alternative hygienic movement of health knew that you should detox. That's what they called it. They did not know why anyone was sick. They just thought it was because you're toxic. You needed to detox. That's all. That's all they knew. And they only knew that up until now, the medical medium info about bugs and pathogens and Epstein bars and HHV6s making people sick and metals and all of that, that wasn't in the hygienic frame. It wasn't in the hygienic movement of alternative health at all on any level. They only thought let's move back now out of the 30s, out of the 40s, out of the 1950s. Let's move up to the 80s. They still believe the hygienic movement, you're just toxic and you needed to detox. That's why you're sick and bedridden. That's why you're not well. That's why you got tics and spasms, aches and pains, and your body's vibrating and got all these problems. They still did not know that there were real reasons why people were sick. Because face it, everybody's toxic then. Everyone is toxic. You guys understand this, right? You mean the UPS driver and the lawyer working at a law firm and the waitress working at the diner and the person checking out in the grocery store and the person working at this other place and the construction guy working here and the bus driver that's working out there. You mean to tell me, and the doctor that's working here, you mean to tell me they're all not toxic? They're all out there living their life, and they're living their life toxic. But they may not be sick in the moment. They may not be sick right now. They may not have a whole bunch of symptoms. Do you see what I'm saying? So what would happen is everybody, think about it, everybody's toxic and everybody has toxins in them. But the scale hasn't tipped yet, or they haven't gotten sick yet. So back to the alternative hygienic movement again. So the hygienic movement just believed you were toxic, and that's all they believed. That's it, that you had to detox. It's a belief system. It is a belief system ingrained in early alternative medicine. Please listen to this if you can. And that belief system that was ingrained is still floating around right now. And everybody's like, your detox pathways, you're detoxing too much. Or you don't know how to detox. You're sick because you're detoxing too heavy. You're bedridden because you're toxic in your detox. They're still passing it around now. It comes early, comes from the early 1920s, the early 1930s. And that hygienic sense of detox is still haunting everybody to this day. And that's the sad part. Confusion with detox is probably one of the most crazy epidemic things that's happening right now in the health movement right now. I could just see some people watching this right now being so irritated. Like, wait a minute, no, that's not how it is. Wait, detox. Because this is mind-blowing information. So let's get into it. Check this out. Okay? Everybody is toxic. Everybody's got toxins in them. But one person is going to be sitting there hurting really bad, lots of body pain, lots of fatigue, and another person is not going to be sitting there with lots of fatigue and body pain. They could be equally toxic. Equally toxic. Mrs. Jones is bedridden with fatigue and brain fog, can't function. Mr. Jones, just as toxic, is out there mowing the lawn. That's just a fact, Jack. Okay? Everybody's toxic. Everybody gets toxic. Everybody's eating all kinds of shit and garbage. Everybody's doing all kinds of stuff. Everybody's walking around toxic. But one person is bedridden. Another person is really horribly sick. Another person has 20 symptoms. Another person has 50 symptoms. And what you're going to hear out there is you're just going to hear detox talk and detox talk and detox talk. You're not detoxing enough. You're detoxing too much. Your detox pathways aren't working. How would you know? How'd you know your detox pathways are working? Nobody knows that. What, there's some kind of computerized imaging machine of some kind that can just, you could stand in front and it'd be like, yeah, see, your detox pathway is not really run. What is going out of your kidney? Doesn't exist. It's make-believe. Make-believe. So what's happened right now is the term detox has been weaponized. It is weaponized. And whenever something's weaponized, people are going to get hurt. They're going to get hurt. They're going to get hurt. And they are. Because it's a total confused fest of the mind. And you see it every day out there. So let's go into it a little bit more. The hygienic movement just thinks people are sick because they need a detox. That's all. All they think. It's an old staple. It's been around, and it's what you think. You go back to the 80s, you're toxic. You go back to the 90s, you're toxic. That's why. That's all it is. And you need a detox until you're healed. But what happens if you don't heal? Oh, you're not detoxed enough, or you're detoxing too much. Nobody knows which way to go, and nobody knows which way the wind blows on that. It's madness. So let's clear the air a little bit and what's happening. So back to conventional medicine and conventional mindset. Detox was just getting off of morphine. Alternative, and detox was just getting off of morphine and leaving the cities. Alternative movement was detox was just getting rid of the riches and the sweets and getting out of the cities, out of the smog. And that's it. That's the reason why you're sick. You're sick because you've eaten too much beef and you've gotten too much beef in your gut and you made yourself sick. That is the original detoxification mindset there is. It's beef, it's beef, it's beef. That's what it is. 1906, beef, that's why you're sick, baby. 1910, it's beef, that's why you're sick, baby. 1920, beef is why you're sick, and some smog. 1930, beef is why you're sick, and some smog. 1940, beef again, and some smog. Do you see? That is how it really happened and what goes down and has gone down. Now, don't take this as I'm anti-beef or I'm anti-anything. I'm just telling you about the history because nobody knows the history. The history is critical and the details matter with this. So then we went into the wheatgrass movement coming into the mid-70s and early 70s where you're toxic and you need to cleanse and you need to get on your wheatgrass and you need to get the toxins out and that's why you're sick. And then it moved into the 80s. You're toxic because, and you got to get off the beef again. And you got to get off this junk and garbage and the riches and the sweets. You got to get off of this and stop eating your chocolate cake every day because you're toxic. That's where it all stems from and comes from. And it's haunted us since, and it's still haunting everybody now. It's this mindset of you're toxic, you got to detox, and it's nothing but detox. And that's the mindset coming from the hygienic movement, which has cursed. It has cursed alternative wellness and health. It has cursed it. So there is a curse upon the health movement, and that curse will destroy and ruin lives. 3 years from now, someone gets sick for the first time in their life and they go into the health movement and they're on the internet and they're talking to this person, that person, and this doctor, and this practitioner, and this coach, and this. In the end, they're just going to get told they're probably detoxing too heavy or detoxing too much, or they're not detoxing enough or something to do with detox, and they'll be cursed. Good luck trying to heal. Good luck. Let's go into it a little bit more now, all right? Okay. So back in the Lyme disease movement coming into the 70s and the early 80s, and this is very important to know, don't lose this information. Get a pen, get paper, write this down. This is free, by the way. I could box this up and sell it, but I want it free for everybody. Back in the Lyme disease era, okay, very important to know, what happened was people got sick. Nobody knew why. They thought it was a tick-borne illness. And then they ran antibiotics heavily into women. Women that already had immune system problems and their immune systems were breaking down and they already were struggling physically with their health. They nuked them. They nuked thousands upon thousands of women in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s. And they destroyed their lives. They ruined their lives. They killed many of them off. They killed thousands of women off by nuking them with antibiotics for Lyme disease. Untold damage, carnage, because of the Lyme disease situation where nobody knew why people were sick. They thought it was the tick. They thought that's what it was. Women had all these weird symptoms, neurological symptoms and aches and pains, and they nuked them and they broke their immune systems down and they threw these people's lives away. There are some doctors now that are out there on the scene, including podcast doctors, that partook in this very thing in the 80s and 90s and have blood on their hands. Now, what happened out of that was called the Herxheimer, the die-off. You guys get where I'm going right now? The die-off. So another place the detox actually was supported through the hygienic movement was when basically the Lyme doctors were like, well, I've heard detox my whole career. I've heard detox from medical clinics getting people off of drugs. I've heard detox through alternative people talking about how they're toxic and they need to cleanse and they need to get rid of all those toxins. So what I think is happening to every time I put antibiotics in a patient is I think they're getting sicker because they're having a die-off. So the Lyme disease world, which was huge, billions of dollars of industry, still is now, they were nuking women literally day in and day out, running powerful antibiotics throughout their system, annihilating their bodies. And then when women complained and said, I can't walk no more, I can't talk, I can't think, I think I'm dying, they would say it's die off. You're detoxing the Lyme bacteria and it's die off. So the messages were mixed. So not only do we have the early hygienic detoxification talk from smog and what they said was too much meat, you also had the conventional world with their detoxification talk of getting off of morphine and drugs and stuff. And then you have the Lyme disease world saying how this Lyme bacteria is making women sick. So when we hit them with antibiotics, the Lyme bacteria is dying. They're going into Herxheimer's and it's just detox. Do you guys see where I'm going right now? Detox has cursed so many people, literally cursed them to death. You guys have no idea what it has done. And it has destroyed lives from early on back in the day all the way till today, including in Lyme disease and so forth. It is the curse of the alternative movement. And hell, you might be fine because you might not be that sick and you're just playing around with this product and that product and you're over here playing around with this and zeolite and whatnot and bentonite clay and charcoal and it's no sweat off your brow. And then you got some person, a woman laying in their bed dying because they're literally dying from like all these kinds of other things I'm talking about that were interwoven into the detox talk throughout the whole century that has cursed people and it's killing people. So the Lyme movement wasted tens of thousands upon thousands of women's lives. There are thousands of graves with women in there that died from being bombarded through the Lyme therapies. No one gives a crap. No one cares. Whatever. Because that's how this dirty world works anyway. So, detox has grown into so many different things throughout the course of the 100 years. And the confusion with detox is vast now. So let's go into a little bit more. As far as Lyme disease goes, it was the harsh antibiotic usage that was eating away at the innards of people that caused their symptoms to be worse. And then it was blamed on Herxheimer's, which was pathogen die-off. And pathogen die-off took the hit right there. That was the excuse. And they used that into they packaged it up to the detox realm. You're just detoxing pathogen die-off, right? And that's why you're suffering. So, let's go into a little deeper on this. The hygienic movement moved into the vegan movement. The vegan movement still believes if you eat meat, that's why you're sick. The vegan movement still believes that if you eat meat, that's why you're still sick. You ever notice? I never took a stand either way. Did you ever notice since the inception of the first book, any information I've ever given out previous, I never said that, vegan's the only way. Animal protein's the only way. Because it's not about these belief systems. It's really about what's wrong with the person and why they're sick. It's one size fits all. It was never a medical medium, and all that proves it. But the vegans believe that beef is why you were sick and you're toxic and you need a detox. That's what the vegans believed all these years. They stemmed it off of the hygienic movement originally, where you were just toxic and you needed to detox. Let's go into this a little bit deeper now. I'm going to move the chocolate cake over, okay? Get a liver and a couple other things. All right. You guys, I got celery juice right here. If you don't mind, I'm going to take another sip. Okay. Singy Sweetie says over there on YouTube, is that's the vegan movement. I guess I'm vegan without following the beliefs of the movement. I just thought it was saving animals. A lot of people go vegan because they're saving animals. They do. But the majority of all vegans, plant-based people, vegans, whatever you want to call them, the majority of all of them go plant-based and go vegan because they got symptoms and they got sick. That's why they went that direction. There's a small percentage that's worried about animals and they stick to that moral grounding, and they're just like, animals have souls and they don't want to eat animals, and there's a small percentage that they go vegan because of that. But the majority of all of them, they go vegan because they got sick or a symptom of some kind. And they went vegan because of that. So let's get into detoxing. All right. People are sick because something's making them sick. Meat is not making someone sick. I'm not pro-meat. I'm not anti-meat. I'm just saying meat is not making somebody sick. Mr. Jones eats all the meat he wants. He's not sick. Mrs. Jones eats all the meat she wants. She's sick. Why is it Mr. Jones sick? Mr. Jones is sick. What? Meat's making Miss Jones sick? No, meat's not making Mr. Jones sick. There's people out there that are eating all kinds of crazy stuff. They're eating all kinds of toxic stuff, or what you want to call toxic, desserts and sweets, packaged food, fried greasy food. And yeah, eventually they'll get sick from something. And then you got somebody who's eating very clean, and they're eating good, and they're eating everything that's coming from the best farm, and they're eating all their fruits and vegetables, and they're eating whatever. And they're sick and they have symptoms and they're struggling. Because it's not about detoxing, it's about what's wrong with you. What is inside of you? What is actually inside of you? And that's the key that the hygienic movement did not know. The hygienic movement, the early hygienic movement, going all the way into the modern hygienic movement, did not know people were sick because of pathogens. Just literally 6-7 years ago, the hygienic people right now today that are plant-based still didn't think pathogens had anything to do with it. There is data that I even have saved. I could not help it because I saw literally people that were plant-based in the hygienic movement just in 2018 saying how pathogens did not exist, and Epstein-Barr was a joke and does not exist, and that you're sick because you're toxic. That's all. You're eating too much animal protein. It even brought us all the way up to 2018 and 19. And then finally come 2020 when C hit town. And when C hit town, everybody's like, viral, 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 viral. What? There's viruses? They exist? What? We have to wear masks? It's viral? And what happens is that explosion all of a sudden opened up the floodgates. So now everybody's like, oh yeah, Epstein-Barr now. Oh yeah, Epstein-Barr. Everybody's like, oh, yeah, there's bugs. There's different bugs. Shingles, Epstein-Barr, there's different bugs. Oh, yeah, I didn't know the fever blister was a virus. I had no idea. Oh, my God, the fever blister, you're right. I just thought you were toxic. And the hygienic movement believed that a fever blister wasn't viral. Did you know that? In the 80s, the 1990s, the 2000s, all the way to 2010, even past that, herpes simplex 1 was not a virus. It's believed by the plant-based hygienic movement, and whatever gurus you call in those movement believe that it wasn't a virus. Viruses weren't real. They weren't anything. You were just toxic. And that's where detox is really a poisonous thing, because it stems from such confusion and misinformation from old belief systems that still are there and have been around. I can promise you this. If you have a fever blister and that sucker's popping on your lip, and you go and you kiss another person, there's a very good chance that fever blister, that virus is going to transfer onto that other person's lip, and they're going to have the herpes simplex SV1 if they didn't already have it. HSV, they're already going to have it. Right from that kiss. If they didn't have it before. So herpes simplex 1, herpes simplex 2 are real viruses, but so are all the other viruses too. and we can catch them and transfer them in the whole bit, and it can catch up to us. We can go through our 20s and we can actually catch 3 or 4 or 6 or 7 Epstein-Barrs, maybe even 20 Epstein-Barrs. We can catch. They can lay dormant inside of us. And then as we're heading into our 30s, our immune system starts to lower. We're doing things that can trigger us. Maybe we're eating all the wrong things that can trigger us, meaning they lower the immune system a little. Maybe we go into some emotional stress or hardship. And all of a sudden, we get the scale tips, and now we're sick. And we're like, I don't know what's going on with my digestion and my bloating, and I'm feeling kind of off, and I don't feel good overall, and something's wrong. And what's happening is the Epstein-Barr is catching up. The herpes simplex 1 is catching up. The cytomegalovirus is catching up. All the metals that have been built up in your brain and in your body are catching up. All the chemicals and all the fragrances are catching up. Everything is catching up, and it's all building up. But the pathogens are the big one. It determines if someone is going to be really struggling, they're going to be bedridden, brain fog, not feeling well. The pathogens are going to be that determination. That's the big one right there. And the hygienic movement, based around the detox theory and the belief system that's developed all those years, didn't even believe that a virus had anything to do with it. I was talking to guys back a decade ago, and they were just like, AW, I just don't get it. There are no pathogens. In the vegan, in the plant-based hygienic movement, it's all about detox. You just need a detox and detox your pathways. They were lost. They were lost. Now it kills them to have to say virus. Kills them to have to utter the word EBV. I remember distinctly an influencer ripping me apart back in 2017-18 about Epstein-Barr, calling me the Epstein-Barr guy, ripping me apart, and he was from the hygienic movement belief system. Didn't even believe he Epstein-Barr. Meanwhile, the guy probably had 10 Epstein-Barrs laying dormant in him. Easy. So let's go into detox at another level now. It's just kind of a little bit of the MM school today about detoxing. So, do we have to cleanse? Do we have to get rid of poisons and toxins? Yes, but they don't take us down. They don't make us so sick we can't function. They don't. Unless you're in a clinic because you've been taking heroin for a year and you're so jacked up on heroin, you're so jacked up that you're in this clinic and you got to go through withdrawal, that's different. That's different. If you're living your life and you got sick, detoxification isn't what is giving you your symptoms. I've said it in medical medium books, and I've said it probably in radio shows and so forth, that if you're highly, highly toxic and you're really, really sensitive, that yes, as you're cleansing, you can feel malaise, a little more tired than normal, maybe a little headachy, but you won't get a massive eruption of all kinds of rashes. You won't get like thrown where your legs feel like cement and you're bedridden. You won't get all these tics and spasms and aches and pains and feeling like you're literally dying. You won't get all of that. And which leads to this next part here, which is really important. When someone starts to do something good for themselves, and they are, and everything seems to be okay, and they're doing a little celery juice and so forth, and they're doing okay, and all of a sudden they get a symptom or they don't feel good, they get scared. Because someone will go, you are detoxing too fast, you have to back up and back down and back up out of that. Don't do so much celery juice, you're going to have to back out. Don't eat so much fruit or greens, you're going to have to back out. Somebody might be incorporating and bringing some salads with some leafy greens. They might be doing 8 ounces of celery juice. Something's up on the computer there. And they might have a little bit of celery juice. They might be taking care of themselves. They might be taking out things, like things that they shouldn't be eating so much of. They might be removing things. They might be removing alcohol. They might be removing stuff out of their diet. And they're starting to get better and starting to feel pretty good, and they're living their life. And 4 months later, they start getting a symptom and they start getting sick. And then they're like, what's going on? I'm doing 8 ounces of celery juice. I'm doing my leafy green salad every day. I haven't had fast food too often. I only had 1 chocolate donut last month. Why am I feeling a symptom? It's what's wrong. And then someone's going to say to them on the computer or somewhere on the internet or on social, and they're going to say, you're detoxing too heavy. You need to stop doing what you're doing. You need to get more fats. You need to get more things you want to eat in you. You're getting emotional because you can't eat what you want. You feel restricted. You need to stop what you're doing. You're detoxing too much because you're getting sick because you're detoxing too much. So back off, back off. And then the person goes, oh my God, I'm scared. I'm scared. What do I do? And they're just like, okay. Just no, I'm done with the celery juice for now. Screw that medical medium, guy. I'm done with the celery juice. I'm not going to eat so many leafy green salads anymore. And you're right. Let me just order a pizza tomorrow. And I am detoxing too much. I need to maybe bring in 10 avocados or something. Let me slow down the detox. But guess what? They weren't detoxing too much, and their symptoms weren't from detoxing. Their symptoms were catching up because the bugs in them and the problems in them were overriding what they were doing. What they were doing was still not enough, and it wasn't enough to stop the trajectory, to change the trajectory of where they were going to be. They were on a course of getting sick someday. They were on that roller coaster ride of getting sick someday. They were on the train heading to the tunnel, and on the other side of that tunnel, they were going to be sick. And that 8 ounces of celery juice was keeping them stable enough. But guess what? They got a little too much exposure, a few too many bugs, and they were on the way of getting sick no matter what. No matter what, they were getting sick. And they were heading into that tunnel on that train. And then somebody with the whole detox BS from the hygienic movement that never knew why anyone was sick to begin with, and on no disrespect, there's some cool stuff in there. Like stay away from this and that, and in life, and stay out of the smog, and make sure you're getting clean water and clean air, and make sure you're meditating. There's nothing wrong with anything like that, but they didn't know why anybody was sick. And so then here you are with this detox information, and you end up saying to someone, you're detoxing too much. Stop, red flag. Whatever you're doing, you better stop. And then the person stops. And then they still get sick and still get sicker and still get sicker. And now their head is screwed up because they were doing something good for themselves, and they were doing something that could save them because they were going to get sick anyway. They were going to get sick anyway. And now it's blown. You're blowing it all sky high. That's it. What really was going on, the person was getting sicker and you weren't doing enough. You were not doing enough to warrant the kind of sickness you had in your body. It wasn't about detoxing and detox pathways or anything like that. It was about, damn, you were sick. And you got a lot of bugs in you and they're percolating. And you probably got 2 or 3 Epstein-Barrs, 1 shingles, 1 CMV, and probably a few other things on top of that to boot. And HPV and who knows what else. And that's what you got going on. And on top of that, you probably had exposures that triggered you and lowered your immune system. Instead of stopping, you should be moving forward even more. Maybe you got a pesticide sprayed on you outside. You didn't even know it. They spray them in every park, in every roadside. They spray them in everybody's lawn, around apartment buildings. Maybe you've had a big drift of pesticides, bug killer, and then a week later, you're showing signs of sickness, and somebody told you you're detoxing too fast, you better stop. And now you really got screwed because you're not going to be able to heal ever. Meanwhile, what you needed to do was not stop. You needed to stay with the good stuff, and you needed to move forward even more with conviction to heal, with faith and determination and discipline to heal. And of course, check in with your doctors. Everybody should have a doctor. Everybody should be asking the doctor. How many times have I held up a medical meeting book and said, bring it to your doctor? And that's what millions of people have done over the last decade. They brought their medical medium books to their doctors. And a lot of doctors were open to it and helpful and were impressed with the information and liked what they were hearing. So on the detox front, mass confusion. Some people may be just sick, and some people may be really, really sick. They have old pharmaceuticals that have caused damage. They've had viruses that caused damage. And when damage is done, you can be very, very ill. It's not that you're detoxing, and that's why you're very ill. No one gets ill detoxing. Nobody just lives their life and they're fine and they're just playing sports and they're on boats and they're having fun in parks and they're going out drinking on the weekends with friends and having a great time. Nobody gets sick because they're detoxing and now they're bedridden. They're sick because they're sick. They're sick because they have things wrong with them. They're sick because they're loaded with exposures and pathogens. Not because they're detoxing, they're sick. And guess what? Guess what? There are nursing homes with people in their 20s and 30s and 40s laying in there sick and dying. Did you know that? There are parents all around the globe with their daughters and their sons in infirmaries dying or at home dying with nurses. With nurses, they're not detoxing. People with all the same symptoms and conditions out there, and they're not detoxing, they're sick. They're sick and they're in beds. There are college kids that can't finish college because they became bedridden in their junior year of college, their sophomore year of college, and their freshman year of college, and they're home with their parents. Thousands of them. Thousands globally. Thousands of them. They can't function anymore. They got brain fog. They got severe crippling anxiety. They can't even function in the world. They're home with mom and dad. They can't finish school. Do you know how many women can't finish school? They can't get a college degree because by their third year, they got so fatigued and brain fog they can't function and actually do the work. And they're home with their parents. Are they detoxing? Someone tell me. Are they detoxing? Jeanette says on Facebook, my neighbor just had a daughter pass in this condition. There are thousands, Jeanette, thousands across the globe. The U.S. alone, thousands. Tens of thousands of young women and men that can't finish school and college because they're bedridden at home with mom and dad. Are they detoxing? Because I'm kind of confused. I'm scratching my head here. So they're detoxing? No, they're not detoxing. They're sick. And what happens is when we're sick, we need a plan. We need a protocol. We need to move forward. We need to learn. We need to heal. And as you're doing that, someone's going to go, you're detoxing too much. You're detoxing way too much, and that's why you're sick. And all of a sudden, it blurs the line. Wait a minute. Was that person ever sick, or were they detoxing this whole time? Did they ever get sick, or were they detoxing this whole time? Because the reason why it takes long for some people to heal is because they were injured. When someone's liver gets really toxic, you guys, and gets all these different things in there, like scar tissue and tumors and all kinds of things inside their liver, right? And they got an injured liver. Detoxing isn't the thing that fixes it overnight. The liver's sick, and it could be sick for a long time while the person's healing, while the person's doing the right stuff to heal. It's a lot of confusion with detoxing, and it's sad because it's growing out there. I watched it years ago, and I saw what was happening years ago, and it stems from a few individuals now, too, in the health movement that built their business off of detox. You hear that? Business? You hear that? Their business, right? Do I sell a detoxing business? No, I don't. But there's a few individuals in the health realm, health professionals, that's been selling for years detoxing businesses. Get it? Convincing people that they're detoxing so they can take all their alcohol, herbal tinctures and such and forth, right? They can take all those things. And that's been keeping the whole detox fear and chaos alive. The detox curse that's been haunting everybody for over 100 years. And that detox curse, that thing's evil, because I'll tell you right now, it'll send somebody just out of healing in a day, in a minute. Because we lose faith, we get insecure, we lose confidence. And all you have to hear is someone say, it's really detox, that's why you're like this. And then you forget why you even got sick. You didn't even know. Like, how did I even get sick? Was it detox this whole time? It's so confusing. So let's go into this part. If you got sick, something busted. You're really ill, something got broken. Pathogens tend to do something. Pathogens tend to do something. That's what they do. Okay? So here's a nerve. Okay? Here's another nerve. These are nerves. There's another nerve. Some nerves down here in the lower part of your body. See these nerves? Nerves. All right? When the nerves get damaged by pathogens, they're injured. Healing doesn't happen overnight. So when there's a pathogen in your body, and that pathogen eats away at a nerve, that's why people get sick. Okay? What happens is, put some pathogens on the nerves. You see this? I'll put them on the nerves. What happens is that you don't heal fast. Maybe you're somebody and you didn't get that sick yet. Maybe your trajectory wasn't going to get that sick. Maybe you have a mild Epstein-Barr, one that just caused mono at one point, and then it's been kind of docile, causing other symptoms as you go along, and then you get the thyroid, the hypothyroidism from your monovirus, the Epstein-Barr, and you're not really that sick yet. And you're living your life, and you're doing your appointments, and you're going everywhere, and you're driving around, and you're picking up your coffee, and you're getting a massage, and whatever else you're doing, living your life, going to meditation, going here, there. And you're not that sick yet, but you could be somebody where those bugs were a lot stronger, more potent, more powerful, and your immune system was triggered enough, it was beaten down with some chemical exposure, maybe some pharmaceutical exposure, knocked down your immune system more. Very important point, you guys. And then the bugs took off a little bit too much and they damaged the nerves. Nerve damage. Okay? Damage. The nerves take time to heal. They may not heal in a month. They may not heal in 6 months. But what happens is someone can come along and be like, you're detoxing way too much. That's why you're sitting there sick. No, you're sitting there sick because you got nerve damage. And nerve damage takes time to heal. Could take years. Couple of years, 3 years, 4 years for some people. If they have the right resources and the right things that they're doing, it could take a few good years. and then they can start coming back. Somebody with severe fatigue, somebody that was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, somebody that was diagnosed with ALS, somebody that just had a lot of different tingles, numbness, weakness of the limbs, somebody that just had crippling anxiety. But the nerves that get damaged need time to heal. And when they start to heal, you come back. But if you don't get that opportunity to come back because somebody said, oh, you're detoxing, stop what you're doing, it's killing you, the detoxing. Without that good stuff you were doing, God knows where you would be. I've seen this with hundreds of people over the years. God knows where you'd be if you weren't doing the good stuff you're doing. But it could be blown sky high because we can easily poison somebody with the detox talk. I've seen it happen for years. It stems from the hygienic movement. It's been around, and that hygienic movement never knew why anybody was sick. I can tell you right now, going back 20 years ago, and I'm not going to name the clinics, but I've been friends with many of the people that have run and operated clinics throughout the years, healing clinics, and they didn't even know there was anything else but detoxing. They had no idea pathogens caused any illness whatsoever. I used to get into debates all the time with like literally directors of clinics where they'd be like, Anthony, it's really just toxins. We do this. You go into the sauna here, and then from the sauna you go into this, and then you go do this. We have all the wheatgrass here. And I'd be like, yeah, but they're suffering with different things inside their body like the pathogens. And the hygienic movement with their detox BS talk has really caused a lot of problems with people out there. And a lot of times people don't know what they really even feel like when they're on stimulants. So people are on so many stimulants out there in general that when you remove all the stimulants, then you feel what you really feel, which is dragging and fatigued and tired. And that's a whole nother level. And when you go to that point, you're going to think you're detoxing too much. When you get off the stimulants, people that get off their Adderall, they get off their coffee, they get off all their stimulants, right? And they're off their chocolate, they're off all the different stimulants. Next thing you know, they're dragging, and the depression starts to creep up. They get off all their super fatty foods and their stimulants, and all of a sudden their depression starts to creep up, and they start feeling like something's wrong, and they're thinking, I'm detoxing. No, you're not detoxing. Dude, you're not detoxing. You were that sick. You just weren't super sick, but you were sick enough where when you got rid of your stimulants, it showcased it. It exhibited it. They felt what their body really had going on and what was really going on inside their body. Their pathogens and their metals and their old pharmaceuticals and things that were in there that have done damage to nerves in their body, and the stimulants were masking it. Healing takes time when we've been injured. When something is injured, our nervous system, our brainstem, our cranial nerves, our vagus nerves, our phrenic nerves, when things injure these things, it takes time to heal. And then when somebody throws that big old word on everything, you're detoxing. It's detox. Person just got screwed. No disrespect to anybody or anything, any belief system out there or anything like that. It's not about that. I'm just trying to give you guys a history. You come into this 4 years ago, 2 years ago, there's influencers right now that are shouting out on IG, talking so much crap that just got into health 2 years ago. All they knew was cut the carbs and eat more protein. That's all they knew. Stop eating fried, greasy food. Start working out more, and you're 22 years old. You can just go on Instagram and show how good you look and how good you're doing, and you don't know a thing about what happened in history and what is even going on. And so when you even utter detox pathway, you have no idea anything about it. Cold White Spring says, but doesn't eczema and acne often get worse when you start detoxing? What happens with eczema and acne is a few things, okay? it cycles. People with eczema and acne already cycle into worse and less worse. Ask anybody who has severe eczema. There's times where it cycles and it's debilitating, and then they come out of the cycle. Okay? They're already going through the natural process of the bugs moving up in strength, lowering down in strength. Moving up in strength, lowering down in strength. And when it comes to eczema and psoriasis, you're going to see that waver, but you're not going to see them bedridden. You know what I mean? Or tics and spasms getting worse, or anything else happening to that degree. And if someone was pumped up with steroids for a very long time, that's another thing that's very difficult on their body's immune system. So it's coming off of all the steroids and the steroids that are inside the liver. That plays a role with the immune system. Because the steroids hold back the immune system's initial reaction of eczema and psoriasis. Understand that. That's important to know. That means without the steroids, their eczema and psoriasis would be that bad. It would be out of control in the probably the greatest sense. So it's a combination when you're talking about eczema and psoriasis in serious cases. You're talking about the steroid process combined, very difficult. Because the steroid process was hiding and masking how bad the eczema and psoriasis was. So when people go off the steroids, the eczema is showcasing what it really should be, and that can be blamed on detox. Like if you're doing something good for yourself. But it's a really good question when it comes down to eczema or psoriasis. Almost everybody with severe eczema and psoriasis goes on some type of biologic, some type of steroid or so forth, and bend down that road, and that's controlling and masking the eczema and psoriasis. So once you start coming off of that, it just blows up because it was hiding, it was suppressing it, right? So that's kind of a whole nother angle. And a lot of people, it's cyclical, right? With eczema and psoriasis, even when they're not on steroids or anything like that, it's ebbing and flowing. Boo, it's awful. Whew, 2 months later, they come out. It's getting level again. Oh, it's awful. 2 months later, they're coming out with it, right? So if you do any one thing, you're not even going to know what's causing it at the time because you're not going to even know where you are cyclical wise. Where's the cycle? Where are you even? Are you a month away from it getting worse like it usually does? Or are you 2 months from it getting better? It's just, that's another thing all on its own. But I'll go into more detail about eczema psoriasis and cover everything so there's no confusion. Lev over there on IG says, AW, can you please explain why people with thyroid adrenal issues struggle to let go of fat? First of all, when we let go of fat, we usually undercalorie ourselves. And fat's a stimulant too. So I want to give you something, little talk about this, okay? If you're on a ton of avocado and you're on a ton of tahini and you're on a ton of olive oil and you're on a ton of olives and you're on a ton of meat and you're on, beef and you're on a ton of chicken and you're getting fat from all kinds of chocolate and so forth and you're on lots of chocolate and everything, what happens is it stimulates and it causes your adrenals to release adrenaline all the time. So you're releasing all this adrenaline. So when you come off of fat, your adrenals start to relax. And then the adrenaline addiction starts. You start to feel the adrenaline addiction. The reason why people are so hog heavy into getting addicted to fats to such a degree, where they're eating so much fat and everything. They have to have fat in their food. They have to have cheese. They have to have all kinds of things that are like fatty. No one wants to eat a green salad that doesn't have cheese or cheese, squares in it, or, something, tuna in there, egg, cheese, right? Because they're getting all that fat. It's all this fat. Because what that does is it stimulates the adrenals and it makes them feel good because they're high on adrenaline, because the adrenaline has to thin out the blood so the fats don't cause a problem with your brain. So it has to thin out the blood. So once you come off of all that fat, you're going to feel tired. You're going to feel where you used to be, you're going to feel where you should feel, because that's really what you feel like. So the minute you come off a stimulant like high fat, which is a stimulant, you end up feeling, whoa, this is what I felt like? It's a different feeling. Same thing when you come off of coffee and then you're now coffee free. You're like, whoa, this is what I used to feel like, or without coffee. Same thing you come off of like chocolate and so forth. Mia over there on YouTube says, what about debilitating reactions to healing foods, EW? Mia, like food sensitivities and so forth. What happens is that's a whole nother thing. I'll do a show on that because I want to do that justice. I read the question because I want to make sure I do a show on that. That's really cool because that goes into food sensitivities and chemical sensitivities, and we need a show on all of that combined. So back to detoxing. We have to be cautious to how we see detoxing and understand it. I'm hoping this information that I gave you today gives you a little bit of a window into where it derived from, why it's still here, why it's haunting people. One thing detox does is it gives the practitioner a way out. It gives the health coach and practitioner a way out. You're not doing better? I have you on charcoal and bentonite clay and pearl powder. I have you on sodium bicarbonate. I have you on diatomaceous earth particles. I have you on alkaline ionizer water from kangaroo. I got you on all this stuff and you're not feeling better? I'm a failure as a practitioner, as a health coach, as a doctor. You're detoxing. That's what it is. You're detoxing. I read something about it. You're detoxing. It's also the way out. I watched it be the way out for all the Lyme doctors for many years. I watched it be the way out. Well, no, wait, you're just detoxing, die off. You're just detoxing in general. That's why you're getting worse and worse. It's not the doxy that I've been pumping in you. Oh, I just put, 10,000 milligrams of doxy in you every single day for 6 months. Oops, it's not that did it. No, you're detoxing. It's been the way out. It's been weaponized. So there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of health coaches now, thousands of them just spawning out everywhere, just boom. And there's all these people, and they get people in there, and they're just like, I don't know what's wrong with these people. I'm just kind of going by the keto diet or going by this and whatnot. I'm trying to health coach them. And then you see them getting sick. And the person who's a client paid money. So they paid whatever. They paid $150 to $300, $500. And they paid this money to talk to the health coach. And the health coach is like, I think you're detoxing. That's what it is. So we got to kind of like figure this out because you're detoxing. Detoxing has been the way out for also the practitioner now and for the person who's a health coach. It's another reason why it's exploding out there because people don't know why somebody's sick. They just don't have a clue, right? All these people, they're all sick out there. They go to the doctors. They're not happy with what their doctors are telling them. And then they go and they look for health coaches and they're going to do that. And they go to courses and they're buying all these courses. They're like, I'm sick. I need to get better. And then they get like a moment with the guru of the course or guru of the coach or whatever it is. And the coach is like, you're detoxing too much. That's another reason why it's exploding. Katrina says, I confirm I had severe psoriasis. It comes in waves, with waves. Worse and better. But in general, it became much better on my head, especially almost everything gone. Amazing. Do an MM. I think this is a big point right here that people don't know too. Here's another one, you guys. Ivy Flower says on IG, can we get the shakes when neurotoxins leave the body? I shake and my teeth chatter sometimes on the HMDS, but then I feel so much better. What happens is when people's nervous systems weaken and they're struggling, okay? Anything that takes digestion could actually trigger mild symptoms. Keep this in mind. Anything that triggers, I'm going to get a better whiteboard. So everything that triggers, so it can happen. So say you got some nerves, right? So we're going to do a nice vagus nerve here. Now there's two vagus nerves that come out of the cranial, the brainstem. Okay? We'll do some phrenic nerves again. Let's do some phrenic nerves. I'm such an artist. All right. Do some other nerves here. Okay. All right. When we have a lot of neurotoxins, right, medical medium information, viruses that create neurotoxins, and neurotoxins are swimming around in our body, they're already putting a damper on the nervous system. So the neurotoxins are already beating down the nervous system, okay? So your neurotoxins, right? This is neurotoxins coming down on the nerves, neurotoxins coming down on the nerves, right? These neurotoxins already hamper the nerves, the vagus nerves, the phrenic nerves, already hamper them. So anytime you eat, you're going to feel it. Not every time, but most of the time, depending on what time of day. You're going to have low spots with your nervous system at different times of the day. This is why adrenal snacks and medical medium does not do intermittent fasting. This is why medical medium information does not withhold food from people. This is why it's not restrictive, because you need to get enough calories in and you need to get enough snacks and stuff throughout the day, because you want to keep the playing field level. You want to keep the homeostasis, you guys, and that homeostasis protects you, so you have less ups and downs with a nervous system that's already hampered. But you eat anything. Depends on what time of day. It can play a role on the nervous system. Because the nervous system's already weak and hampered. Takes time to heal. But if someone said, well, you're detoxing, better stop the HMD, better stop the heavy metal detox, you're detoxing, and you get scared, you stop the HMD, you stop your celery juice, you stop whatever medical medium tools, there's dozens and dozens of them, and you stop them, and now you're like, what? What do I do now? Anyway, guys, this concludes the first round of detox talk. We are going to do it again sometime, but I think I'm going to talk a little bit more if you got another minute. Let's talk about new exposures. So your gut can be filled with a lot of different stuff. It can be filled with old rancid fat that's sitting inside the gut linings. It can be caught with undigested protein sitting in the gut linings, and it's all building up in there, right? Our guts can get toxic. It can get filled with chemicals and all kinds of metals and everything else in there and all this kind of stuff. Okay? And we can still not be sick. We can have a gut full of garbage. There are guys walking out there and they got a gut out to here and it's hard as a rock, and you can literally punch it. Like boom, boom, boom. And it's not going to actually even budge. And you can punch it. And that gut's going to just sit there like a big rubber ball inside the guy's gut, right? And the guy's like, fine. He's like, I go to work every day. There's nothing wrong with me. Yeah, the doctor says I need to lower my cholesterol. The doctor says he's worried about my A1C. He doesn't want me to get type 2 diabetes. But overall, I'm doing pretty good. I feel good. And the guy's gut is filled with shit. Tons of shit and garbage, right? Somebody else has very little of that in here. They're eating clean. They're doing good a lot. But it also depends on exposures. But if that guy that has that hard gut that's filled with all that garbage in there gets a real exposure, picks up a bug, something happens, it could go down. And it all comes crumbling down. And people who are also taking care of themselves can also get new exposures too that keep them down while they're trying to heal. We got to ride those out. Where do you work? Did they spray something you're exposed to? Where do you live? Did they spray something you're exposed to? It's endless. There's lots of exposures everywhere. New relationships, public bathrooms, everything. Restaurants. I've been saying this for years. It's probably the biggest bug spreading place possible is restaurants and hospitals, right? Hospitals, it's already, we already know that. But you need to go to a hospital, you go to a hospital, right? But there's so much exposure there too, right? But there's so much exposure in restaurants. All the same. That's the big place. That's the big exposures. They don't wash all the stuff off all the dishes right. All the glasses and the forks. I talked about this in the Brain Saver book. And the chefs cut themselves continually and then put rubber gloves on. And they put gloves on, nitrile gloves on, but they got blood on everything, even on the outside of the glove, because they're cut and they're just getting it everywhere. And they put the glove on, and now they're making your food. It's one of the biggest exposure places there is. People making food, they need to be really careful, even when they're home making food for people. That's how much exposure happens out there. Anyway, you guys, I'm going to let you go. This was fun, but we're going to cover detox again because it really needs like a 4-hour talk. And these are just this is just one section of it. Some things to consider, okay? And some things to avoid, by the way. Some things you can't avoid as well. So some things we can't avoid, which is public toilets. When we're out, we can't avoid all kinds of stuff. It just happens. We get exposure, but that's okay. We can do things to take care of it and move forward and heal. But either way, look out for the detox, fear, and chaos. It's parroted by influencer, and it stems from places like I talked about earlier. All right. Love you guys. One day at a time.